let's get into the news. So we had three coaching firings. First off, Antonio Pierce out as the Raiders head coach.
Yeah.
I really wasn't that surprised. And, fun little, well, I guess it doesn't really, I don't know. I guess you would count it for him, but um, I'll get into it in a minute. You can tell me if you would count that or not. But, he's obviously out as the Raiders coach. I really wasn't that surprised by that. I just kind of thought the way it was going um, is just a weird direction for the franchise. And, I've heard John Gruden's name being floated back around. So I wouldn't be
What?
shocked. Yeah. Yeah.
There's no way Gruden gets
hmm
hired again. There's
Yeah.
no
By the
way.
Raiders. Well, dude, think about it. He didn't get fired because, the Raiders ownership wanted him gone. He got basically blackballed by the NFL and he's suing them. And if he wins that, they can't keep him out of the league. So, yeah.
That is
You didn't
true.
hear about that? I mean,
No, I
there's,
did. I just forgot. It's been a couple years. I just forgot.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that is. I mean, are they still paying him from his first contract, or do they not have
I,
to pay
I,
him
I
because of
don't
the
know.
NFL, that whole situation?
I don't know how
He
that
signed a 10-year
works.
deal. I know he signed a 10-year deal initially, which is crazy for a coach, but
Yeah, I'm not really sure how that works exactly when it comes to that because, I mean, he got mainly fired. I know him and Mark Davis have a very good relationship. I mean, you would think Vrabel's a name that'll be, floated around for this as well, just with the Tom Brady
Vrabel's going
aspect.
to New England. He's going to New England for sure.
Probably, but I mean, Tom Brady still is a 10% owner, so you'd think at the very least, there's a chance.
Perhaps. For
Um,
Antonio Pierce, I wasn't shocked that he was fired. I almost was kind of expecting it. It's tough, man. He was in a bad spot. The front office just didn't give him an answer at quarterback, and it's you're going to the season with O'Connell and Minshew. It's what do you expect? You looked at that team on paper before the season. You're like, I'd be surprised if they won 7 games. Like that roster was depleted, and in sports most important position, he wasn't given an answer, and they didn't even give him an opportunity to coach with a young quarterback, even though it's going to be difficult for the Raiders to even get one this year. I mean, this franchise is a really tough spot, and I know this is not an opening that I would consider very attractive.
yeah, no, it's definitely, a very weird spot they're in right now, I would say. Um, you would imagine they're going to be drafting a quarterback. I mean, I know they're slated to be picking 6, so it's tough because you look at the teams in front of them, and at the very least, Giants and Titans, you'd imagine who would take a quarterback. I'd assume the Browns too. So there's 3 teams ahead of them that'll probably be drafting a quarterback
The
or expected
Browns
that
are
too.
the wild card, right? Because the Titans at 1, they're taking a quarterback, I think 100%. They could go the route where they get a guy like Abdul Carter and they're like, we don't want to invest in one of these quarterbacks. They're in an in-between spot, the Titans, because they were rocking with Will Levis this year, who clearly was not ready to lead a team to the playoffs. While they brought in a bunch of veteran free agents, they gave Calvin Ridley the bag. They traded for L'Jarius Sneed and gave him the bag. Lloyd Cushenberry in the offensive line. You made all these win now moves when your young quarterback wasn't ready for that, and now it looks like they're going to move on from him. But now you got to think the Titans are taking a quarterback at 1. Browns for me are the wild card. If this was last year's draft, there's no doubt the Browns are taking Jaden Daniels or Drake May, whoever they preferred. This year, though, all these draft analysts are saying Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward would be QB 7 and 8 if those 6 quarterbacks drafted in the top 12 last year were in this draft. So for a team like Cleveland that has so much money invested in Deshaun Watson, where he's almost on your team for 2 more years, there's nothing you can do about it. You're going to have so much dead money anyways. And it's a team that made the playoffs last year. Could you at number 2 with Cleveland say hey, let's stick with Watson. We don't really have an out. It's not like the second quarterback off the board is a slam dunk prospect. Could we take a guy like Abdul Carter to pair with Myles Garrett
Or
and you
trade
run it
back.
back with Watson? Or trade back? Yeah, you trade back 1 spot with the Giants so they can get their quarterback. The Raiders would be calling to go up to 2. I think that's the Browns' best path, honestly, than taking a quarterback where he's not an A-plus prospect and you're taking him number 2 overall and passing on a lot of really good defensive talent at that spot, in my opinion. Or you could even target Travis Hunter. I mean, I know corner's not their biggest need, but just the type of athlete, you're picking 2nd overall, you do have a lot of talent in that roster. You can go best player available or trade back and do this, take best player available. I think that is a very plausible scenario for Cleveland, but it's also this report came out that Watson has a setback in his Achilles recovery. And now it's like, well, they do need an option at quarterback. They need someone else in the room that's not Jameis Winston or DTR or Bailey Zappi.
Yeah. No, 100%. 100%.
The problem is the supply of quarterbacks does not meet the demand this year.
No, not at all. But in other quarter or head coaches that were fired, Doug Peterson's out as a Jaguars coach. This one was actually interesting to me because I thought like for sure he was going to get fired midseason. And down the stretch, I mean, the Jaguars were playing hard with Mac Jones as their quarterback. Their last 6 games were decided by one score or less. So they really were hanging around. They were fighting for him. And, even in a week 18 game that's meaningless, like that game went into overtime. So he definitely didn't lose the locker room. So I was like in the back of my mind, like, does he keep his job just because he didn't lose the locker room? And obviously, they dealt with a lot of injuries. But I think at the end of the day, Shad Khan was just so pissed with the fact that, you know, he called it before the season the best roster they've ever had in the history of the franchise. So the fact that it was such a dud of a year, I think you have to move on.
Yeah, I agree. This one was an easy one. The Jags job was definitely going to open. I know Trevor Lawrence has had injuries the past 2 seasons, but it's like when they blew that game. I mean, I'm sorry, when they lost in the playoffs divisional round 2 years ago and collapsed down the stretch last year when Lawrence got hurt, and then Lawrence also hurt again this year. Do you blame the injuries? Do you blame the coaching? Do you blame the player himself? Trevor Lawrence has not developed like everyone anticipated he would. He's not a top 5 quarterback. I don't even think he's top 10, right? That for me is a big reason Doug Peterson's gone. He was supposed to develop Trevor Lawrence, help him take that next step into that elite tier. Did not do it. And the way the team just faltered the back half of last season and it never seemed to recover, I think a change of leadership was certainly warranted.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see. I mean, I would think they're going to bring in an offensive minded coach. It sounds like Ben Johnson's right now that's the top landing spot for him from what I've heard. And it may make sense because they kind of want to get the most out of Trevor Lawrence, and they would like to try to unlock that guy that was touted as a generational talent that really has not lived up to it. Like I'm not going to say he's been bad, but he's still the best quarterback from that draft class, which has been a horrific class looking back at it. But
yeah, dude, I know. And for the Jags, like I've seen rumors that they're going to throw the bag at Ben Johnson, and Ben Johnson's eyeing that job. And I kind of like the Jags job. Like they're going to rebuild their stadium. Like Shad Khan, it seems to be an involved owner, but you have a quarterback. You have a lot of pieces on the line. Like I love their pass rushing duo of Trayvon Walker, back-to-back double-digit sack seasons. That's huge after his rookie year where he started off a little slow. Josh Allen Hines, obviously a beast. You do have Brian Thomas Jr. at receiver. You have some pieces along the offensive line. Still need to address the offensive line. They need more, but you have some pieces there. You have talent in some premium positions. Tyson Campbell's a stud corner when he's healthy. He's just never healthy. Like in premium positions, you do have some guys, and you have an owner that's willing to spend, and you have this new stadium. You're in Florida. Like I don't think the Jags job is a bad job, but a lot of people in the league were shocked that Trent Baalke, the GM, kept his job. And this is a situation where, I'm sure we'll talk about the Giants at some point and how they kept Daboll and Shane. But what I didn't want to have happen was fire Daboll and keep Shane, because it's way more difficult to bring in a head coach when that GM's already established. It's better to bring in 2 guys together. So I think it could make it more difficult for the Jags to land their desired target. But then again, Shad Khan could just throw a shit ton of money at Ben Johnson. It doesn't matter, and they get him. You know what I mean? So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I still think they're going to target an offensive-minded coach to try to get Trevor that next step.
yeah, for sure. And then the final firing, Gerard Mayo out as the Patriots coach. And now that actually the stat I was going to say is that is now 5 years in a row where we have seen a coach go one and done. So I thought that was very interesting.
Wow.
And it kind of speaks to how the patience of a lot of these owners are starting to wear out over the past, decade. And I believe that's now 10 or 11 in the past 10 years. So something that, you didn't used to see that now is becoming a very common theme in the NFL. And I was saying before with Antonio Pierce, I don't know if you consider that as a one and done since he was the interim head coach last year.
I think
So that's why I was
technically
like,
not, but I would almost
yeah,
consider it. I would almost consider it that, but technically I don't think it is. And
yeah,
with Mayo, it's certainly not fair. It's like the Patriots didn't spend much off season. Like they had a rookie quarterback. You walked in the season, you're starting Jacoby Brissett. The team is just so depleted of talent. Like that's clearly the worst offense in football from a personnel standpoint. If you put every team fully healthy, if you put every offense on the field, I think that's the worst personnel wise. They do have the quarterback though. Drake May looks really good for what he had around him. But I don't know. Mayo just didn't seem like he was ready for that big of a step.
No, not at all. I mean, it'll definitely be interesting to see who they bring in. I mean, obviously, it sounds like Vrabel would be the
Yeah, he's
top
interviewing
guy.
on Thursday.
It's
So
just so weird though because everyone's like, "Oh, he's going there," but it's like they could have had him last year if they wanted him. No, I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that and I'm completely missing it.
no,
Like,
the thing
the,
was Robert Kraft promised Gerard Mayo that he'd be the coach in waiting once Belichick was gone because Mayo was going to go somewhere else, I think, to be a DC, and they didn't. Kraft did not want to see him leave, so that's why Mayo stayed for a couple years because he knew he was the head coach in waiting. Where it's like you
yeah,
already made that promise to him, and they have a great relationship. Like Mayo was obviously a player for that organization for a long time, so he honored his word. But now it's like Vrabel's sitting right there. Apparently, Vrabel's dream job is the Pats. Also played for the Pats. So for a guy like Vrabel that's had success in the league and he's staring you right in the face, I think it's a warranted move. Although it's not fair to Gerard Mayo. They only got 1 year with a very depleted roster.
I'm sure some team will give him a job as a DC somewhere, or
Yeah. I
maybe
hope
not a
Antonio Pierce
DC, but
becomes the Giants DC. That'd be cool. I'd love to see that. I think it's certainly plausible that Antonio Pierce gets hired.